Welcome everyone, they call me IntroTechOut and Doom Eternal has completely taken over my mind. This shooter has given me a new perspective on game design and gave me a new level of appreciation for id Software. Too bad that I won't be able to play their future games because of the Microsoft deal, but whatever. Today I just wanted to gush about it for a bit and talk about how I came to like the game more and more as time went on and simply why I enjoyed the game so much. It's not often that I'm able to document my experience in this way. I'm also kind of making this video to show that the average player doesn't get good at a game overnight. Some players, I'm sure it's mainly kids, like to attack reviewers or first time players for their relatively poor gameplay, which is obviously dumb. I've become a huge fan of Doom Eternal and a decent player, but I haven't forgotten what my gameplay looked like at first. Because when I got Doom Eternal, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I enjoyed Doom 2016 a lot, after all I did make an entire Game in Dreams parodying it, but I'll be honest, Doom 2016 did get repetitive after a while. About 2/3 into the game I remember starting to lose interest a bit and I never played through the game a second time. But that's not weird because I never really play single player games anyway. The only exceptions are the first 3 Uncharted games. Sometimes I boot up Uncharted 1 and before I know it I've finished Uncharted 2 right after it. Might as well finish 3 too. But there's a problem with the Uncharted games, and actually with a lot of single player shooters that I didn't realize until I played Doom Eternal, and that's that they don't really have an interesting skill curve. Uncharted has fantastic shooting mechanics and a lot of options for verticality during combat, but if you take one of these games and look at the gameplay in the first levels and the last levels, there's barely a difference. Once you're comfortable with pointing and shooting and the cover mechanic, you will make it through each game. Of course there's a reason why I've replayed these games so many times. The writing is some of the best ever and the gameplay feels great, but there's definitely a skill ceiling that you reach quite fast. But then came Doom Eternal, a game with one of the most satisfying skill curves ever, maybe only beaten out by Rocket League. I played through Eternal on normal difficulty, hurt me plenty. It wasn't easy. I died numerous times, almost at least once every encounter. I got killed by Arachnotrons, Cacodemons, Mancubi, and especially the Marauder. I hated the enemy so much that I legit wanted him removed from the game at the time. I wish I captured some of my early gameplay, but of course I only record gameplay when I'm doing well. In the background now is the only gameplay I have of my first playthrough on the normal difficulty. My definition of doing well has changed, obviously. So yeah, I beat Doom Eternal and moved on to working on stuff in Dreams again. But then one day I didn't really know what to play and I felt this sudden urge to try playing Doom Eternal on that hardest difficulty, Nightmare. Just for fun. So I booted up the first level again, now of course with a fully decked out Slayer, and the addiction began. Because to my surprise, the hardest difficulty in Doom Eternal isn't unfair. It's hard and uncompromising, absolutely, but you can still make the game easy by playing well. In other words, you can master it. And I wanted to master it so bad. I started watching YouTube videos about the game and learned from what other players were doing. I saw a community rise from the burning ashes of the Icon of Sin. Under the Mayo, probably the most respected Doom content creator, managed to convince me that the Marauder isn't a poorly designed enemy. Cynic the Original, probably the least respected Doom content creator, taught me effective Nightmare strategies. By the time I got to the Marauder again, I was excited to blast him to pieces. Probably the biggest step a noob like me makes on the way to mastery is when they start quick swapping. Now, quick swapping in Doom Eternal is when you fire one weapon, then switch to another one and fire it immediately. Rinse and repeat. This animation cancelling technique allows you to output way more damage because you don't have to wait on weapon cooldowns. I myself was really reluctant to do this at first because using the Super Shotgun Ballista on everything felt cheap to me. But I changed my mind and I'm glad I did, because while Super Shotgun Ballista is a great combo, it's far from the only one. I now like quick swapping between Precision Bolt and Ballista when I'm facing a lot of enemies with weak points, or Super Shotgun Rocket when there are a lot of enemies close together. And it's so much fun to do this. Of course, because I play on console, my quick swaps are limited to 2 weapons, where on PC, players can quick swap between every weapon, resulting in an awesome dance of death and destruction. What I do see in my own gameplay from the past and gameplay of a lot of new players is a lack of creativity. Doom Eternal always shows you an effective strategy for killing a new demon in a tutorial pop-up message. The problem is that we get too easily fixated on that one strategy. Look at my old gameplay again and you'll see me desperately trying to destroy weak points with the sticky grenades, not moving to another strategy when I miss over and over. Because that's what I thought was the most effective strategy. I need to shoot a sticky bomb in the mouth of a Cacodemon, I need to sticky bomb the turret of an Arachnotron, sticky bomb the cannons of the Mancubus, sticky bomb the missile launchers of the Revenant, blood punch the Cyber Mancubus, etc. Back then I didn't really feel comfortable enough with hitting weak points with a ballista or precision bolt, so sticky bombs were my go-to for a lot of things. But at some point I had this moment where I suddenly realized that I didn't actually need to do any of these things. Matter of fact, these strategies were holding me back. So I started experimenting. This is really where the depth of Doom's combat becomes clear. I remember around release that a lot of players and reviewers said that the game forces you to play a certain way and doesn't allow you to be creative. This couldn't be further from the truth, and I think the reason why these reviewers felt this way is because they played the game in the exact same way that I did my first playthrough. Keep in mind, I'm not blaming the reviewers for that. The fact that I played through the entire game using only the strategies that the game taught me shows id Software could have done a better job of encouraging different playstyles. Loading screens with tutorials would have been perfect opportunities to show different strategies. Like, hey, here are 3 ways to kill a Cacodemon quicker than using the sticky bomb. Instead, the loading screens show rather obvious things. But after you understand that there are multiple ways to deal with demons, you basically start learning so many strategies for each demon that you can deal with them no matter what the current state of your resources is. The reason why Eternal doesn't grow stale is that at the highest level, the most effective strategy to kill an enemy changes constantly, and you need to adapt. One moment the Rocket Lock-on mod is the best way to deal with an Arachnotron, but the next moment a Super Shotgun Ballista combo is more favorable. It all has to do with your positioning, what enemies are on the field and where, and the state of your resources, health, armor, ammo. Outside of the player base, I feel like Doom sometimes has a reputation of being a mindless shooter. But in fact, Doom Eternal is the most competent, the most tactical, the most complex, the most carefully crafted shooter I've ever played. And that's what made it so hard in the beginning for me, because Doom Eternal doesn't play like any other AAA game on the market currently. Even Doom 2016 doesn't prepare you at all for what this game has in store. Above all, Eternal is a game that makes anyone who plays it better at FPS games, undoubtedly. And the skill ceiling remains high. After I replayed the game on Nightmare difficulty, I pretty much immediately did it again, but then as a new playthrough, so I didn't have the advantage of having all the weapons at the beginning. After that, I did an Extra Life mode playthrough on Nightmare. Extra Life mode is essentially the base game unaltered but with permadeath. The only thing that works in your favor is that the extra life system from the base campaign remains, so you can technically die, you'll just lose a life. When I finished my Extra Life mode playthrough, I had 20 lives remaining, which means I might be more ready than I thought for the ultimate challenge, Ultra Nightmare. Which is once again the entire campaign, hardest difficulty and permadeath, but without any extra lives. You do have to be in a specific mood to play Ultra Nightmare, because it takes a lot of time and the game is, in my opinion, more fun when you have a lot of the weapons and upgrades unlocked. Playing Ultra Nightmare basically means spending most of your time in the first couple levels. Now, I always thought people were just boasting when they said the first levels were the hardest of the game, but they were not. You have essentially no health and no weapons that can deal damage quickly or falter enemies easily. The first time I got past level 3, after a ton of deaths mind you, I immediately made it to Necrovault Part 1, which is level 10 of 13 in total. The furthest I've gotten is the end of Necrovault 2, only 2 levels away from the end. So I'm sure I'll complete Ultra Nightmare at some point. I think that's just awesome though, that Doom Eternal has such a well crafted and fair combat system that a player can go from struggling at normal difficulty to being able to complete the entire game without dying on the highest difficulty. So now I turn to you. If you have played Doom Eternal once, you might want to dive back in at some point. It's immensely fun and rewarding to feel yourself getting better and better. If you considered getting Doom Eternal but were on the edge, maybe because of the difficulty, maybe because you remember Doom 2016's faults, believe me, this game is worth it. The only thing I'll recommend is to make sure you don't put the difficulty too high initially. The game is really worth replaying and you'll get better every time. But that's enough gushing about Doom Eternal for the day. This will probably not be my last video on it, since I really want to talk more about its design and how it can be applied to any game. While I wouldn't want every game to play exactly like Doom Eternal, I think it has a winning formula that a lot of games can learn from. Even I myself am trying to apply its design philosophies to the best of my ability as I keep continuing my dreams game design adventures. Oh, and before I leave, I obviously have been really inconsistent with YouTube. I want to thank everyone who subscribed and stayed around in my absence. I know of so many YouTube channels where the person in question just keeps apologizing over and over while making the same mistake over and over again, so I'll not make any promises about what content I'm going to make and when I'll make it. I do hope to stay more on top of things though. I almost completely left the internet last half year. But for now, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you around.